Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. This week, Stan Helsing has top secret info about spoofs. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin. I am Thomas Mariani, just plainly here, just saying my name, and now I'm going to be crushed by a cow. Oh no!
And I am Adam Thomason. Shirley, I am serious.
Oh, well, I'm glad you could admit that to Shirley.
Yeah, good lady.
Our behind-the-scenes producer who we've had this entire time, who we've never mentioned before, Shirley.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's also a part-time waitress at the local truck stop diner. Great lady.
Oh,
Has pineapple earrings. Wonderful.
Look, I would love it if Leslie Nielsen in drag was our producer this whole time. We would love that for sure. But welcome, everybody, to the double-edged double bill, in which every week Adam and I cover a good and a bad feature related to a topic that we feel is, usually related to something that recently came out. And we're doing spoofs, which is part of our Revember series, because we've done spoofs before previously, way back in 2018, where we covered Fatal Instinct and Austin Powers and Goldmember.
And not a great episode, especially for you. I like one of those movies, and I really detest the other. So
I don't know. I thought that was. I re-listened to that episode recently. I think it's a fun one, especially your wife was on the show, who has been on a couple times.
Don't remind me.
Ball and chain, am I right? The jokes everyone loves, just like ball and chain wife. Am I right, fellas?
Take her, please. Hey.
Perfect. Not at all dated and awful material.
Nope.
We are returning to the world of spoofs because Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, recently came out on the Roku channel for free. Anybody can watch it. I watched it a couple of days ago, and I thought it was fun. Like, it's a very appropriate Weird Al biopic for all of its inaccuracies and appropriate stupidity.
We are going to watch that as a family tomorrow. I'm excited.
That'll be interesting. I would say it's like PG-13 fare.
Yeah,
so
well, Lily's not going to watch it. She's going to walk away. There's no
Right.
question.
Spoofs is a genre, when we did our initial episode, unless you said it as much, Adam, it's one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, I love a good spoof movie, man. I love a good send-up. Some of my favorite movies are spoofs, but I don't know that it's necessarily one of my favorite subgenres, because there's a lot of bad. But when it's good, it's great. I mean, think of like the first Naked Gun movie, maybe in part 2, part 3, nah, not so much. But like Hot Shots and, the Mel Brooks movies and Airplane. I mean, some of them are just fucking classics of comedy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did revisit a bunch of those spoof movies that I hadn't watched in quite a while, like Airplane and the Naked Guns and stuff like that. Appropriate, given one of our features belongs to that sort of the Abrams-Zucker school of spoofing, which I guess that's the thing, is like the evolution of the spoof genre pretty much has, like, obviously go back into comedy and see like specific parodies of like movies and music and stuff like that. But in terms of film, like the spoof as a genre really kind of kicked off with like Mel Brooks, especially with like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein in the 70s. And then going from there for like specific genre spoof type stuff, you get the Zuckers with like Airplane and the Naked Gun stuff. And I think that's the thing, is that those movies in particular with the Zuckers put such a huge, massive, indelible stamp on the spoof genre that most of the spoofs that happen particularly in the 90s are just trying to chase those coattails. And most of them are very bad, aside from, like, I would say the Hot Shots, particularly part 2. I would say, in the 90s, it's mostly a lot of just like, oh, guys, you don't get it. And what do you think they don't get that, the Zuckers in particular and some of the other spoof people really got about a good spoof?
What tends to happen, especially a lot, if you go with like though I can't remember their names, and that's probably for the best, but like the date movies and superhero movies and
the Friedberg Seltzer oeuvre.
Those fucking guys. I think what it is it becomes more like hey, you remember this, so it's funny, right? And there's not really any joke there or any care put involved into it. It's just, hey, remember this from this? Ah, now it's in this, so it's funny, right? And it just that doesn't work. There needs to be a thorough line of joke. The best spoof movies have a story, have a plot. It's just a lot of stupid shit happens along the way, but there's still a thorough line. There's a beginning, middle, and end of a story. Whereas those ones that came out in the late '90s, and like I said, the ones I reference. There's no story. It's just dumb shit, and that's not funny. That's not smart. It's just lowest common denominator humor, fart joke done by the chick from Enchanted, and you're like, oh yeah, go great. Like it's so stupid. It never works.
Yeah, Mel Brooks has this great quote about in terms of parody where he says, "You have to love what you're parodying for it to work." And I think that's exactly why the best of those spoofs of his or the Zuckers or and the other ones that have come before or since them, like the best ones tend to be ones where it's like, oh, this is somebody who appreciates the genre or the film they're specifically parodying, or even like Weird Al himself. Like that's part of the interesting things that you can tell, especially with like the style parodies, which are my favorites, where it's not a specific parody of like a specific song as much as like the parody of like, oh, I get what this entire like artist's work sounds like, so I'm gonna do a style like Dare to Be Stupid with Devo, shit like that. Like that stuff works so well because a person really appreciates and respects what they're making fun of. Versus when you get to like around the time like those Friedberg Seltzer movies, they were literally parodying movies that they had seen trailers for. So they could come out with a movie like within, I don't know, a month or two after the movie actually came out. So thus it's just like it feels so much more crass. Oh, it's vaguely popular. We know it's going to come out. So let's just have the lowest bottom of the barrel reference, and thus that's funny. And that's why I think a lot of the spoof movies end up really going the way of the dodo after like YouTube became a thing. Because then where it's like, oh, we can make a parody of something within hours after it came out and put it up there for everybody to see. Going to a theater to see that shit seemed pretty fucking stupid, and people stopped going.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, what's the last huge spoof movie you can think of that was theatrical, other than those
Uh,
Friedberg Seltzer ones that made no money?
well, I mean, they made money up
They
until
made
a point. Like
enough. They made enough.
Disaster Movie was like I think the last one to where like it kind of made some amount of money, but then kind of petered out. And then they did like Vampires Suck, I believe, in some of those other
Yeah,
ones.
and like Meet the Spartans and all that garbage. It's just I agree with you. The thing is, even take which is to me unjustly considered one of Mel Brooks' lowest rated spoofs, Dracula Dead Loving It, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. But I'll take that over any of those Friedberg Seltzers one because you hit it on the head. You could tell Mel Brooks appreciates the Dracula story and he really is into telling a funny story with set in that universe. And plus, he's got Leslie Nielsen, who's still like, capable and cares and it works. It's just, yeah, the appreciation for the source material is paramount. And if you don't have that, like you said, man, that's a really good way to put it. I didn't even think about that, but it does feel like in those Friedberg and Seltzer movies, they just watched the trailers, got the big taglines, and then just repeated them in their movies, and that's about the best you got.
Yeah, like Disaster Movie came out the like at the end of August of the same summer where like Iron Man and all those other movies had come out already. Like that's how very crass and quick a turnaround they had with that. And I think also like with the you mentioned Leslie Nielsen of it all, the genius of casting him in Airplane and then the other movies is like they managed to make his super serious character actor facade he'd had like throughout like the 50s and 60s and 70s and turn that into the perfect delivery system for jokes. Like the reason a star was made when in an airplane that one lady goes up, she's like, "Is anybody here a doctor? Are you a doctor, sir?" And just Leslie Nielsen seriously saying, "Yes, I am," while he has a stethoscope around his fucking head. It's like, no shit, of course he's a doctor. But like that's what makes it so great. Is like he's super sincere about this while he's wearing a dumb prop. Like that's part of the joke, as opposed to in those later Leslie Nielsen ones that came out in the '90s, he's mugging like crazy. There are so many fucking bits where it's just like, oh, look, Leslie, make a weird face. Do this. Like, no, that's not the joke. The joke is that he has a very stern, serious face. So then when he does something stupid, it's fucking hysterical. And the same thing with, like, Robert Stack, Lloyd Bridges, all those great character actors who they would have like, weird resurgences because of these spoof movies. It works because they're super serious and it makes the stupid shit all the funnier.
Doctor, we have to get these people to a hospital. A hospital? What is it? It's a big building with lots of windows and patients, but that's not important. Like, it's so stupid. But he's taking it so dead-ass serious. That's what made Leslie Nielsen one of the best back in the day. And, of course, Robert Stack in that movie, just when he's going through the airport and he's fighting all the Hare Krishnas and everybody else, like it's like an action scene. But no, that I agree with you. That's what made those the best, where people treat it like it was dead serious. And that's always makes for good comedy. That's why I like Fatal Instinct so much, because Armand Assante is treating that material deadly serious. And he's super funny in it. You lose all that when it just becomes, like I said, fart joke or someone getting crushed by something, or, it doesn't work.
No, and I guess that's why we should finally get to our two movies for the evening, because I think both of them exemplify how to do that and how not to do that. For sure. As we have your bad pick, which we got at the end of our last episode, which was Stan Helsing. And then my good pick, which was chosen, one of my choices, but also was voted on by our patrons, patreon.com/DEDBpod. More on that later. And we ended up with Top Secret, one of the Zucker Abrams Zucker movies. But let's pull the Band-Aid off, Adam. And let's get to our first feature here, Stan Helsing.
And legend has it that Van Helsing can save us from this curse.
Van Helsing!
Van Helsing.
Did you say Van Helsing?
No, I didn't say Van Helsing. I said Stan Helsing.
I work at a video store. Yeah, we carry porn. Schindler's Fist. How Stella got her tube pack. 6 degrees of penetration. You're welcome, Grandma.
On Halloween night, the 6 biggest movie monsters of all time will finally meet their match.
Are you kidding me?
Listen.
You guys hear that?
Evil has a new name to fear. Stan Helsing.
Stan, are you okay?
Are you wearing any underwear?
Yep, he's fine.
Oh.
Freak.
It's so bad.
We have to do this, Adam. We
God.
have to do this. Discuss this a bit further. So Stan Helsing came out October 23rd, 2009. It's directed and written by Bo Zenga, who, this is his only feature film, though he does have a co-writing credit on Soul Plane, a great comedy classic.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and basically, if you couldn't tell from the title, this is a horror spoof, where the vaguest possible plot synopsis I can give you is that the titular character, Stan, played by Steve Howey, works at a video store and is tasked by his manager to be like, hey, before you go out to your big Halloween party tonight, you need to take these videos over to the boss's mom's place. And so he, along with his compatriots who are about to go to the party, which include Nadine, played by Dior Baird, Teddy, played by Kenan Thompson, and Mia, played by Desi Liddick, go on this wacky adventure in which they basically encounter a bunch of super spooky horror movie spoof characters that are maybe a bit familiar. I don't know, they're very subtle about who they're parodying with these various monsters that show up. Yeah, some other people show up, including, we mentioned him earlier, but Mr. Leslie Nielsen. This is one of his last movies before his death, and
Yeah. I'm not convinced that Stan Helsing wasn't the cause at this point. This movie's fucking terrible. I mean, I get it. You jest because it's a spoof episode. There is no subtlety in this movie. This movie is the horror version of those disaster and date movies, 100%.
Which is ironic, given there had been 4 scary movies prior to this.
And I'll take any of those, except for maybe part 5, over this. But this is just dick joke, tit joke, horror character reference. Rinse, repeat. And that's it. It's fucking terrible. And the thing is about Steve Howey, like, I know he's from like Shameless, I think too, right?
I recognize him from like a couple of things. He was recently in Day Shift,
Right.
The vampire Jamie Foxx hunting movie,
Which
which
he
is a
was
pretty
great.
fun movie.
He was the best. Him and oh god, I can't remember his name, but the martial artist guy, whatever. They were the best in it. Um, but he's also in like he was from like the Reba McEntire show.
Right. And by the way, Scott Adkins is who you were referring to.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. But there's a lot of weed jokes too, because hey, funny. You can tell it's written by people who've never smoked a fucking pot in their life. Let's make them all talk super slow, because that's what happens to you. Like, no. What a bummer this movie is. Like, it's so bad. And the thing is, holy fuck, man. I mean, let's put it like this. Did you laugh once?
I would say I did laugh a couple times. Mostly
Really?
at one particular character, who I'll get into in a bit. And it's not because I think the writing, but I think the actress did a really good job.
Oh, because I did not laugh once.
I would say like laugh is maybe being a bit generous as much as kind of chuckled a couple times. But I'll just say it right now. It's Desi Liddick as Mia, who was kind of like the bimbo character. I think on paper
Right.
there's so much like awful, shitty, like very like blonde jokes that they give her to do.
Yeah.
But I think she commits to them pretty well. Particularly, there's a bit where like, oh my god, I'm gonna die in a slutty nurse dress. No, you're not gonna die in a slutty nurse dress. Oh great, because I had a different outfit. I really liked it. I wanted to put it on. Like she like her delivery. I think she's been in a couple other like of these comedy movies, and I would say like not another teen movie. It was another spoof movie and such. And I think she does as much as she can. I don't think any of these actors are like terrible necessarily. I feel bad for them if nothing else, because it's just like you're trying, it's just not working. I'm so sorry for.
Oh yeah, no. Our main four, none of them are like unwatchably bad. It's the material that they're given is just bottom of the barrel. But they are trying. They are definitely trying.
Right. I mean, like, look, fucking Kenan Thompson. Obviously, like this is early in his SNL career, and it's so surreal seeing him in the superhero outfit, having grown up with all that, where he played a character called Super Dude, who was a much better parody of fucking, like, a genre from, like, a kid's show in the 90s versus this piece of shit.
You know, the thing is, everybody in this is so thinly written character-wise. Obviously, you got Stan Helsing, who's the stoner guy, who's super horny, and you got Kenan Thompson, who's they constantly call him chubby and fat, who's super horny. And then you got Diora Baird, who's got big boobs, and we're going to reference that constantly. And you got the blonde who's dumb and doesn't wear panties a lot. Like, okay, you got it. It's the lowest hanging fruit, and they go back to it so many times. So many fucking times, to where within the first half hour, you've probably seen every joke they're going to do. It's just they keep retelling it just with a little bit of a twist each time, but nothing changes.
The thing is, like, I'm not necessarily opposed to this. Like, we mentioned Scary Movie, obviously, which those movies, shockingly, don't hold up extremely well. I know you're all very surprised by this fact.
No, but there's still some funny bits to them, though.
Right. That's the thing, is that I would say particularly the first three, I think, have enough funny bits to make them kind of watchable. And I think it's because you have really committed performers who they at least give the space to do weird things, like Anna Faris.
Oh, dude, Anna Faris in the first three is some of the best, like, sort of slapsticky spoof acting in a long time.
Or also, of course, Regina Hall, who's amazing. Like, the whole bit in Scary Movie 2 with, like, the skeleton that she's... Cindy, that's a skeleton! It's so funny.
So good. I'm gonna fart on these walls. So fucking good. But the thing is, it's granted there is a lot of things in those movies that don't hold up, but there's still a certain level of charm to them. There's still really funny bits that happen here and there, like the whole Chris Elliott stuff is really funny. It's gross, but it's
amazing.
funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's great. But then it's like with Stan Helsing, you could tell they're trying to have certain characters like that, like with the gas station attendants or the altar boy or something like that, where they really want you to have these like memorable, like silly characters. You forget them the second they're off the screen. Like, here's the thing. I watched this 2 nights ago, maybe 3, and I'm really struggling even putting the movie in sequential order.
Yeah, I watched this 12 hours ago and I'm having a similar problem at the same time. Because, yeah, that's the thing, is that this obviously, like, they want to have the thing, like, in Scary Movie or any of the Zuckers things where it's like joke after joke after joke. But the problem is, so many of the jokes are, like, belabored. Like, the fun of a lot of those spoof movies is allowing the performer to kind of, like, sit in a moment and have, like, a weird, like, oh, this is, like, a bizarre thing that's going on here, or treating the moment seriously, anything like that would make it a bit funnier than just, like, whatever is written on the page. As opposed to, this feels definitely like, we gotta, like, get this going, gotta keep this, like, put out as quickly and cheaply as possible, so there's no real, like, interest in, like, actually kind of, like, sitting in the joke in a way that a good comedy would, as opposed to, like, nope, we gotta do this rapid fire, but at the same time, it's like getting from one belabored joke to the next, as opposed to one joke. It's just like, we gotta get to each comedic set piece as quickly as possible. And also, like you mentioned, it's so obsessed with, like, sort of that, like, late 2000s era kind of, like, crassness, where so much of this is, like, attempting to be as far as it can go into being titillating without going into softcore porn. With particular, like, all the stuff with the Dracula bride stripping and shit like that. So this feels, like, so skeevy in the way of, like, a late 2000s comedy would.
Yeah, I agree. It's gross. Diora Baird, the only point of her character is to have cleavage in this movie. They shine lights on it. People are constantly grabbing her chest, everything like that. And it's just, I get it in a way, but at the same time, like, one or two times, okay, I get it. You know, you're pointing out basically the obvious with what she's wearing and things like that. But when you're just constantly going back to that in this type of movie, it just feels lazy at that point.
There's an egregious shot in particular where Baird and Liddick are just, like, in a two-shot, and there's a windblower joke where, like, oh, their skirts are being blown up, only so we can have, like, the altar boy get blown away and he's wearing, like, ladies' lingerie. Isn't that funny? Didn't you laugh at that, Adam?
Oh, man, I forgot about that. Just like the rest of the movie. It's dumb. It's stupid. You've seen it. That's the thing. There's no joke in this that you haven't really seen before.
I mean, it's not even just that we're, like, obviously humor it's hard to, like, get extremely creative jokes out of every new, like, fucking movie or whatever, but it's like, even if you're gonna repeat a joke, that's fine if you can have some new spin on it or some interesting version of what's being put out there, as opposed to, like, with the horror movie parody characters, we should mention, you've got the parody of Chucky called Lucky. Great. You've got the parody of Jason Voorhees called Mason, played by Ken Kersinger, who had played Jason previously in Freddy vs. Jason. And speaking of Freddy, we've got the Freddy parody, which the most clever joke possible they could have, of calling him Fweddy with a W. I mean, that's just genius, Adam. I don't know about you, but that's like true comedy.
Comedy gold. Like it was written by Dane Cook himself.
Yep, and of course, also Michael Cryers, Pleatherface, Needlehead. I'm sure you can't even spot, because there's such clever revisions of classic horror characters, who those are possibly parodying.
Right, yeah, you would never guess. Ever guess.
No. And as we said earlier, Leslie Nielsen does appear in this movie, as at a certain point they go into a diner when they're at this weird, like, there's the whole plot thing where, like, they have to go to a different town, and it's actually an old movie studio / town, and there's a working restaurant there that is later revealed to be a ghostly facade that still comes back. It's weird, whatever. And Leslie Nielsen plays the female owner of the bar.
That's the whole joke. That's the thing. It doesn't go any further into it. Like, they could do something with it. But the whole joke is it's clearly an old man dressed as a woman, or it's supposed to be an ugly old woman. That's the joke. And that's it. It goes no further. But wait, Stan kisses him at the end.
Right, and he says freak in his Leslie Nielsen voice.
Yep.
Which, like, obviously, like, I mentioned this at the end of our last episode when we did the whole, I used my veto that we have. We'll be talking about this later at the end of the episode, but I used my one veto I had to be like, well, you know what? At the very least, we're covering Stan Helsing. We can at least cover a movie with Leslie Nielsen in it. And I can't emphasize enough how fucking sad this is to see him in this.
That's what we call a backfire, baby. But maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen the other one that was up, and I'm sure it's just as bad.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Black. I think, if nothing else, I would be just more offended by it, I think, because that was one that went into theaters And
that's
was
right,
like,
yeah.
and also Marlon Wayans just pisses me off more because I know that dude is talented. One, he can be funny. Two, he can actually be a good dramatic actor, and that upsets me even more seeing him do these fucking things where just like he doesn't really give a shit.
He's become his brother. He's become Keenan.
But then again, also it's weird how he's basically become like the bigger one, which is weird because like out of all the Wayans brothers, I would have said Damon was more of like the movie star charisma guy, and he disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, he just said fuck it. Now his son's out there doing it, and his son's actually pretty funny.
His son's really great. Yeah, Damon Wayans Jr. is, I would say, my favorite Wayans.
Wow, we're talking about the Wayans brothers, about the movie we didn't choose, almost as if Stan Helsing is that fucking terrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's not as much to say. Like, to get at least back to the Nielsen of it all, like, there are so many points where it's very clear they had Nielsen for, like, a day. And they could only shoot him at certain points.
Yeah.
Like, bad doubles, a lot of bad insert shots of him saying,
Yeah, his health clearly wasn't great.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, man. It's pretty rough. You know, I've always been a huge Leslie Nielsen fan ever since Airplane. My wife's a huge Leslie Nielsen fan. I think anybody who's a fan of spoof movies and comedies in general likes Leslie Nielsen. It's just, he's always been great. I'll never forget that, you know, when he passed away, you know, I saw it probably, I'm guessing online, even though I don't probably AOL dial-up or whatever the fuck at the time. But,
AOL keyword, Leslie.
on AIM, lightsaber 6969. But we got the new issue of People because we had one of those like free magazine subscriptions because we bought like donated to Girl Scouts or something like that. It was the issue after he died, and he had half a page on the very last page about Leslie Nielsen, and I was so pissed because it's like, dude, Leslie Nielsen he's an icon of the comedy genre, and before that, he was an icon of like bad sci-fi and B movies and stuff like that,
or even classic, like he's the star of fucking Forbidden Planet, one of the greatest
like, 50
sci-fi movies ever.
Or Day of the Animals, I believe he's in that too.
The Poseidon Adventure, he's the fucking asshole captain who like
Exactly.
he causes everybody to die. Yeah.
So then to see something like this, and you got to wonder, like, did he need the money, or did he love the craft? And I'm hoping it's because he loved the craft. But it's still a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, is after what, weirdly, like, I think his last serious role was in the one Barbra Streisand movie, Nuts, where he played, like, the abusive doctor.
That's correct.
Right. Like, throughout the 90s, like, it's such an astonishing, weird career thing that this guy who was, like, in his 60s became a massive star after, like, especially Naked Gun. After Naked Gun, that dude starred in, like, so many, like, theatrically released big comedies that, like, you could tell, once, like I said earlier, a lot of people didn't know how to use him that well, but there was always at least a dedication you could tell from Leslie, even in the biggest pieces of shit. And even here, I will say, it's sad to see him, but it doesn't feel like he's necessarily half-assing it.
No, he's not funny. He's doing the best he can.
Right.
Like, that's clear. Yeah, I mean, even look at his really bad ones. Like, what's the one? Wrongfully Accused.
I put a pin in that.
There was the Exorcist ripoff that he did.
Repossessed, yes.
Yeah, like, terrible films, but he's committed.
And even in, I will say, speaking back to, like, the scary movies of it all, he's probably the biggest highlight of 3 and 4 when he pops in as the president. He's genuinely very funny in those movies, particularly with, like, the aliens reveal how they pee through the fingers, like, they're just like us, and he just puts it out. Like, there's funny bits from him in those movies.
I mean, absolutely. One of my favorite comedy lines ever is, well, I don't know about you, but when I see 6 men stab a man to death in the park, I shoot first, ask questions later. It was a production of Shakespeare in the Park. They were doing Julius Caesar. He killed a bunch of men. Like, he's just so fucking funny. And he was game for it all. You know, that's the one thing I guess the one good thing about talking about Stan Helsing is that we could talk about Leslie Nielsen a little bit. I put him and Lloyd Bridges up there as the two of my favorite go-to, like, older man spoof actors.
Yeah, and it's at least heartwarming to see that, even, a decade or so after his death, I still do see even, like, younger people post certain things, like the gif of him from Naked Gun, where he's just like, nothing to see here, everything's fine. It's like the explosions are going on behind him in the background. That kind of became a meme, even as recently as, like, the last couple of years. And I love that, the fact that, like, his style of delivery and comedy works even to, like, a modern audience. Like, there was a great video where somebody edited him from Naked Gun into footage from that Detroit video game.
Yep. Or if you watch him where he was doing press conferences, he's using a fart machine the whole time.
Oh, he loved those fart machines. Yeah, a lot of stories of him using the fart machines.
Anyway, Stan Helsing's terrible.
Yeah, right. R.I.P. Leslie, R.I.P. to a real one. And Adam, do you have anything else to add about Stan Helsing? Anything pressing we haven't mentioned?
It's unfunny from beginning to end. A lot of good-looking people doing shit, but after a while, that even becomes not even after a while. After the first 10 minutes, like I don't care how attractive these people are. This movie is horrible. I will honestly say, I'm glad it's so forgettable because if not, this would be considered to be one of the worst picks I've ever done for the show. But because it's so forgettable, I'm not even going to remember I did that. So, praise Jeebus.
I mean, I guess one final like postscript to that. Would you say this is like the worst spoof movie we've ever seen, considering we've talked about like so many of these other ones that are so bad?
No, I still think those fucking like again, I don't remember the names because I don't appreciate them. But like the disaster movies, superhero movies, I think those are the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely like those are worse. Even I would say the fourth scary movie, I would say, is even worse. I think, like I said, the ones that offend me the most are the ones that like where they put in so little effort yet got theatrical releases, like the Friedberg Seltzer ones or like that one. Some of the really bottom of the barrel ones, as opposed to this one is not far off by any means. It's definitely very bad bottom of the barrel, but for at least like the couple chuckles, like I said, I think I got it particularly. Desi Liddick, who is doing as much as she can with these very like dumb bimbo jokes that don't really work for her whatsoever. At the same time, she I think commits to the bit in a way that works, and even like I said, like Keenan and the other actors in here, I don't think are they're enough for me to at least say like this isn't the worst one of these I've seen, but it is not very far off from the worst. I think like I agree with you. I think I will having like I said watched this only about 12 hours ago. I will probably forget all about it by the time we are like done recording this entire fucking episode. Even as we get to our good movie, which we might as well get to now with an actual authentic Zucker production. Top Secret.
Looking for a video that will make you laugh out loud? Then catch Val Kilmer in this undercover comedy where East meets West.
Michael Baumann mal guten Worten listen.
What the hell did you say to him?
Nothing. I just told him I'd put his name on the Montgomery Ward mailing list.
Hillary.
That's an unusual name.
It's a German name. It means she whose bosoms defy gravity.
It seems that you have become, how do you say, indispensable?
Indispensable? I'm not the first guy who fell in love with a girl he met in a restaurant who then turned out to be the daughter of a kidnapped scientist, only to lose her to her childhood lover who she'd last seen on a deserted island and who turned out 15 years later to be the leader of the French underground.
I know it. It all sounds like some bad movie.
When the creators of Airplane and The Naked Gun set out to make a spy spoof, the laughs fall hard on the East German High Command in Top Secret.
So, Top Secret came out June 22nd, 1984, from directors David Zucker, Jerry Zucker, and Jim Abrahams. And these three, of course, were the ones who had previously done Airplane, and before that they had written Kentucky Fried Movie. They were guys that did a lot of like sort of theatrical spoof, like on a literal stage show in Milwaukee, where they originated. And then they eventually made their way over to Hollywood and were so massively successful with Airplane. And they followed that up with Top Secret, which I would say is one of their more underrated ones, I think, amongst, because like in between, the Airplane and the Naked Gun movies, they did this, and also Ruthless People, which for the record is not one of these like spoof movies. It's just a funny comedy crime movie. I'm curious, Adam, you've kind of been flaky about, like you said, you didn't like it originally that much when we first mentioned this as a Patreon poll and stuff like that. Have you warmed up to it, having revisited it now?
Well, here's the thing with Top Secret, okay? I have seen it in parts. I don't know that I've ever seen it straight through. It played a lot on Comedy Central and TNT and things like that. So I always saw it commercially cut and everything like that. And these type of movies, it never works. It never works because you miss the bit. They're usually cut, mid-bit, or if they are not, they don't give you any chance to like sort of follow the throw line.
And they cut certain things for time. And plus, it's all about the momentum in general with these movies.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was always kind of like, it's okay, But so after rewatching it literally today and finished 10 minutes before we started recording, I will say I'm still not crazy about it, but it does hold. It is a lot better than I originally thought. There is a lot a lot of funny, smart bits in this movie.
Yeah, I'm about to drop a bit of a hot take. While I really enjoy Airplane and The Naked Gun Lie, I think those are both great spoof movies.
Oh, no.
This is my favorite Zucker thing. I love it so much. I think Top Secret is just...
I quit.
Well, it was fun while
it was a good run. It was a good run.
We'll always have Paris. But having, like, especially rewatched, like, Airplane and all three of the Naked Gun movies, in addition to rewatching Top Secret, I just think this one has such a great density of jokes that, like, fire on all fucking cylinders and are also so uniquely weird, even for the Zuckers. Like, there's certain bits here that, even as much as, like, other one of these movies that can get close to it, like, nothing, I think, quite as surreal and bizarre as, like, the bit where Val Kilmer and the female lead, Lucy Gouchard, are going down and they have to escape and they're gonna get on bikes, and then Val Kilmer shushes away some of the bikes and they ride off like horses.
Yep.
Like, that's insane shit. Even compared to Airplane, this is fucking insane and all over the place. But at the same time, I think, like, honestly, there are, like, maybe 2 or 3 jokes I did not laugh at in this movie, as opposed to, like, in Airplane, there are I would say a bit more that have not quite held up as well for me.
I mean, I laughed a lot. I mean, I literally have a list written down of funny bits that made me laugh. And it's an entire piece of paper. So, I mean, this movie is funny. I wasn't laughing the whole movie. I wouldn't say that. But I laughed enough to where it's a very pleasurable experience. Let's put it like that. I think Val Kilmer was really fun.
Very early role for him.
Babyface, young Val Kilmer. But also just, like, picking out, like, you know, oh my God, it's Michael Gough. Oh, Omar Sharif.
Peter fucking Cushing, one of his last movies.
Yeah, you're like, holy shit! Like, that's really fun. It's fun, dude. There's, like, a lot of good sight gags. There's a lot of good, like, just stupid gags, but works so well.
Particularly, my favorite thing about this is there are so many gags where, like, the joke had so much production detail to go into it. Like, there's a bit where Val Kilmer's on the train, he's about to, like, go off, and instead of, like, in a shot where it's just like, oh, that's him sitting there as, like, all the background passes by, the train station is on wheels and goes past him while he stays stagnant, and you see a shot of him fucking going down. There's so much money went into that fucking dumb gag.
Well, when they're on the hotel balcony and they look down, it's a bunch of hamsters. And Matchbox
There's
stars.
clearly a model. So many great, like, filmmaking jokes in this movie that, like, or the perspective bit when the one general goes over to the phone and it's like, oh, it's close to us because it's near us. Like, no, it's a giant phone. He picks up.
Love it. There's 2 really good phone gags in this. That is one, the forced perspective phone, and the other one where, oh, quick, call. So, you know, stop them from the shooting. And it's this old lady with her fucking walker to get to the phone before they're going to execute Val Kilmer. Like, it's so stupid, but it's so funny.
And I think, yeah, it has a lot to do with, you kind of mentioned this earlier, the idea of, like, the Zuckers were very stringent about, like, we have to have a through line of a story that works so we can hang the jokes on them. Like, in any scene where there's, say, like, plot exposition going on, there is some funny bit, like, way at the opening of the movie, when one of the generals gets, like, a news thing about Leonard Bernstein isn't gonna be able to come to the thing. The second-in-command guy who gives him the fucking thing, like, he has his helmet on, and he takes it off, and the chin strap is just a part of his chin. Such a weird fucking gag, and it's so funny as you're getting plot exposition. You see this fucker with a chin strap just permanently attached to his fucking chin.
Right, and that's the thing. You get a lot of those sight gags, but you also get, you know, the long form gags, like, oh, you have to take them to the potato farm. So you have a potato farm, and it turns out it's called the potato farm because the guy who runs it, last name is Potato. They don't they don't grow potatoes. His last name is Potato.
Right, and also he answers the door with, like, the very top thing. They looks at it, just like, okay, and then he opens the door. He's a very small man. There's no ladder.
Right, exactly. Or just like, you know, oh my God, is he all right? Yeah, he caught a cold. He's just a little horse. As a tiny horse. But there's great bits. I mean, like I said, when they're walking through the leaves and they're crunching and Val Kilmer's like, shh, and then all noise goes out. Or my favorite bit might be Deja Vu. You know, he's like, oh, Monsieur, I sure I've met you before. No, I don't think so. Okay. And then he looks back at him quizzically. Like, okay, this is so dumb. It's so simple. But it just works great. The underwater bar fight.
The underwater bar fight is my favorite gag. I think because, like, once again, it's another thing where so much money went into this. So just like, oh, we could have just had them, like, fighting underwater and that would be enough. But it's like, nope, there's a whole Western saloon down there. There are cowboys playing poker underwater that go underneath after
with
they
a
start
madam
fighting.
who's like, into Val Kilmer. She's like, I'll see you later. And he does the finger guns at her. They do the whole thing.
He picks up a cowboy hat and shit like that.
And dusts it off.
That's the thing, is I think this one does such a great job with like just the density of jokes and also just the amount of money that goes into these jokes. I think just makes it all the more elaborate and funny to me. And I think to prevent this from going full on to just like, this joke was funny, this joke was funny, this joke, like listing that off necessarily. What do you think, I guess, maybe separates this from Airplane or the Naked Gun movies compared? Like, what makes you think this is maybe slightly lesser, in your opinion?
I mean, I wouldn't go lesser. It's just more or less, for me, it'd be nostalgia. I mean, that's the only reason. I grew up with Naked Gun and Airplane especially, and seen it so many times, can quote it almost from front to back. This is kind of a new one for me. Doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it better. It's still solid, but I just have more of a fondness memory for like Airplane and things like that.
I think you can consent, at least this is better than the Naked Gun sequels. I think particularly 3, right?
Definitely 3. Yeah. 2's still funny. Robert Goulet, classic.
Goulet has the best sort of eyebrows to react off of those jokes. Like the
100%.
moments where they would have people like silently be like, what? What's happening? And then move on. Like, he had the great eyebrows for that. But this movie even has that too, in a way that I think also works, where like there's the bit where the Val Kilmer talks to Lucy Gertrude, and he basically like lays out the plot. He's like, I'm not the first guy to fall in love with a girl he met at a restaurant, and it turns out she was the head of the Secret Service, blah, blah, whatever. And then she's like, I know, it sounds like something I have a really bad movie. And the way they look sheepishly at the camera, like I've seen other people do gags like that.
I agree with you. It's a gag that's been done 100 times. Right. But when there's full conviction behind the gag, it works.
Right, especially like the fact that her and Val Kilmer have the perfect looks like sheepishness. It's not even like, oh, our camera's looking at us, we're not winking to the camera. It's like, guys, we're sorry, yeah, that we're in this movie. It's kind of bad. Like, they have guilt on their face. There's like emotion to it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a really smart, funny movie. And it does really well with sort of the, spy genre, not Cold War, but like post World War II Nazi Germany. Like, everything works in this. It's super funny. This is one I honestly think it's crazy how under the radar this one sort of has gone, especially being I guess because Airplane was such a massive hit, to where, I mean, Airplane is sort of in the cultural zeitgeist. Top Secret isn't. But I do think it deserves to be. I really do.
I can see why this was not nearly as commercially successful as Airplane, because if nothing else, that came out at the right perfect time, where it was parodying not just like 0 Hour, which is the movie that they were inspired by, the old 50s one, but all the 70s airport movies. Mm-hmm. And it came in at just the exact right time to like completely decimate that, like the disaster movie genre in general. It came in at the perfect time to be that kind of like massive comedy hit. As opposed to this one, it's parodying much older source material, and it's not even doing a specific parody. Really, the only specific parody, and the one that feels like the weakest, quite frankly, to me, is the whole Blue Lagoon thing.
Which is still funny, though.
There's still funny gags in there, yeah, like the whole thing of like they build the house out of the hut, and it's like the shelter, and it's got like a garage door opener, or it's like we explored each other's bodies, and there are like bunches of people on top of each other, and shit like that.
It's so dumb. But the thing is, that's what I want out of parody movies. I want the dumbest joke. But, and even like we said in the talking about the last, I don't even remember what the hell the name of it is. That's how much I like that movie. But where they go for the lowest hanging fruit, well, you can go for low hanging fruit, but if you do it in an earnest, fun way, where you're not just doing it because we have to make a joke here, we have to fill in the quota. In this one, there are moments where they do that. I mean, the part where Omar Sharif comes in, he's crushed like a car. And then she goes across to open the glove box and her breasts are on his face and the antenna rises. Like, that's low-hanging fruit, but it's still funny. A, because it's Omar Sharif. That's always great. But B, it's like, it's a payoff because you saw the car crush happen 20 minutes before. And then he walks in as this fucking thing.
Well, and also there are a bunch of gags even in between, like the bit where like the antenna goes up. Like there's the whole thing where it's like, can you, it's in the glove compartment, can you reach it? And he goes underneath, the horn hits and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's so stupid, but they do it in such earnesty that it makes it funny.
Well, there's an intelligence to the dumbness, which I think is like the key to like a great spoof movie.
There
it's like you can have dumb jokes, but if you do them in a way where it's just like, you thought about the internal logic of this dumb fucking bit doesn't make any sense. Or even if you don't think about the internal logic and you just do something very quick, like one of my favorites is the bit where one of the German soldiers gets thrown over the castle walls, and then you cut to a shot of him falling, and then he breaks like glass. Like, they're just very quick about even jokes like that, where it's like, that doesn't make any logical sense, but here it is anyway, let's go to another joke. Like, that's the thing, is like, in every shot, almost, there is a joke in this movie.
I mean, to the point to where, you know, after my favorite bit is probably the whole reverse thing with Cushing. It's so dumb, but it's so funny.
Right, but so much work went into choreographing that fucking joke.
And then they go upstairs and, you know, you see all their clothes and all stuff, and she's, you know, telling them this sexual story. Like, it's okay, but turns out she's reading a book, you know, and then they go to kiss and they crush the guitar between them. Like, it's so fucking funny.
And they start making out under the multiple fireplaces, which is beautifully paid off when they have the whole, like, post-romantic discussion as they're parachuting down.
The best.
And they make out, and then there's a fucking fireplace with a parachute. And I think it's a lot of, like, we mentioned this earlier about Leslie Nielsen, that sort of, like, treating the material seriously so it makes the jokes work. That's the beauty of Kilmer's performance in this movie. I think he's done, like, other comedic stuff later on, like I was a Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or even Real Genius not too long after this. They're, like, very funny performances that are very committed, but here it's even more sincere because he feels like he's just like, I believe in the internal logic of, I'm a weird Elvis-style pop star who is performing in front of all these women, but at the same time, stupid shit is happening. Like, the song he does where it's all about, like, oh, baby, please don't leave me, and he's gonna be like, I'll kill myself if I'm not with you, and they're all the different methods of suicide, like the noose, and the oven, and the train tracks that are on the stage. Like, he believes it so sincerely that it makes even those jokes just, like, so fucking funny to see it on his very young baby face that is so committed to the bit.
Well, I mean, if you're going to say anything about Val Kilmer's a very serious dude. So to see him do this type of role, even if it's an early role or not, you just know, like, oh, he's fully committed. Like, he's a fully committed actor. So yeah, it makes it better. It makes it so much fun. You know, I think that's really, you know, you asked me earlier, and I think that's sort of what hits it on the head with these good spoof movies. When A, if it's a virtual unknown, or B, it's someone you know is a serious actor who just is going to be like, yeah, I'll be silly. And it makes it funnier.
Right, that sincerity is what makes it funnier. And also credit to, like, even, like, as funny as, like, some of the bits are, where, like, so many musical numbers where he's singing and dancing, like, to very silly songs. He sings all those songs, and him fucking doing those, like, Elvis-style dance moves, like, particularly the bit where he does Tutti Frutti at that one, the big...
Oh, yeah, he's dancing his ass off.
He's, like, bending his knees like he's fucking Elvis Presley. And it's just like, damn, Austin Butler found in a ditch. Come on, this guy. Another one with Kilmer where it works so perfectly is the whole bit where he gets knocked out, and it's just like he's in the prison being tortured, but he's dreaming that he's, like,
in school,
in school. It's like, I didn't study for the exam. I love his look where he's just like, oh no, I didn't study, and he's flailing his arms.
Yeah, wakes up and he's getting whipped. Oh, thank God.
Oh, thank God.
Dude, no, okay. And I don't want to turn this into it, but the thing that made me laugh the hardest...
You're turning it into it, though. That's exactly what you're doing.
I don't care. My favorite bit, it's a one thing.
I believe your third favorite bit.
Well, I don't care. This one made me laugh to where I paused it and had to have my wife come in the room.
Yeah.
Where he goes to escape his cell and grabs the crowbar, which is for some reason hanging on the bathroom sink, opens the top vent, crawls in, and immediately falls out the bottom vent. It's such a simple, stupid sight gag, but I laughed so hard for some reason. Because, like, it's the dumbest thing. Of course that's what's going to happen, but you never expect it. That's what makes a good spoof movie. Of course that's what they're going to do, but when it happens, you're like, I can't believe they did it. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those, like, the when Deja Vu uses the hammer and you think he's going to break the window, but it's just, like, the chamber crumbles and stuff like that. It's such, like, fascinating film. I think that could only really come from the three of those guys together, because this is the last of the spoof movies where all three of them were directing. Because after this, they had, like I said, Ruthless People was the last one where they all directed on together. And then after this, they kind of went more separate ways, where, like, David Zucker took over a lot more of the spoofs, where, like, he's the only director on Naked Gun, and the other two get writing credits because they had written for the Police Squad TV show, which, if you don't know, is like a 6-episode show that Naked Gun is based on, and all the great gags from Naked Gun come from those fucking 6 episodes. Track that down if you can. But I think you lose something when you don't have, like, the three of them together, because from what I understand, at least, like a big thing was that each of those guys sort of took different positions about like, I'm not sure which one necessarily, which person was divided into this, but like one person was very much dedicated to the technical craft of the joke, one was dedicated like the actors doing it, and one was dedicated like even the like the different props and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think no, I remember that there was a documentary on one of their DVDs where one was definitely more into the technical aspect, one was more into the sight gags,
Right.
and one was more into the long form.
Well, it also was like more dedicated to the actors. I think it was Jerry, because he would go on to do like Ghost and a lot more like the serious minded like, performance driven ones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, like I think when you had all three of those guys together, the three of them are sort of like a weird hydra of comedy that makes this work. As opposed to they all went on to do like funny things. Like even Abrams went on to do the Hot Shots movies, and those are very funny. Like I think there's a specific magic you get with the three of them together that could never really be duplicated, especially after this movie.
Yeah, I think that's accurate for sure. But the thing is, hey, go out on a high note, right?
That's true, as opposed to like if all three of them had been directing by like, oh, we're all doing Scary Movie 4, everybody like, let's not do that. No, let's not. You can have Pat Proft do that, and some of those other guys that came in a bit later. But yeah, I guess, are there any jokes that maybe didn't work for you necessarily, Adam?
The thing is, the jokes that worked outshined any that didn't work. That's what makes a good comedy, where you don't remember the ones that don't work. You can only remember the ones that did. So, no, I think, even if there is ones that didn't work, it flowed into the ones that did. I'd be hard pressed to name one.
I would say just the stuff that I wasn't as big on is weirdly the thing that was the advertising campaign of this movie, which is the cow suit thing. Like that was all over the posters and shit and whatnot.
I thought that was kind of funny.
There was like, I think that has the least ratio of like funny jokes to me. Particularly just the whole thing of like, oh, the one guy gets raped by the bull.
No, I get that. I think but why it works for me, which I think is funny, is because they're supposed to be in a cow suit, and it's clearly just stock footage of a real cow.
Right, that's funny, and also the fact that the villain actually says like "moo."
Yeah,
Nigel,
right.
The way he says it, right?
There
are funny bits in there for sure. Yeah, I would just say like that has. If I had to pick one, it's like that particular.
I guess if I had to pick one that probably doesn't hold up so well is the one guy being named Chocolate Moose.
True,
but there was a great bit in that where Chocolate Moose shoots everybody, and they're like, "Oh man, nice shot." And then out of nowhere, another African-American guy walks up and goes, "My man," and they slap hands. He's never in the movie again. You'd never see him again. But I just thought that was so fucking funny.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I like though about him also is that there's even like they give him jokes that aren't just specific to he's black, like the jive guys in the Airplane.
Actually, I don't think any of his jokes were. Other than the fact his name is Chocolate Moose and the My Man thing.
Yeah, like my favorite bit with him is the whole thing with the grappling hook, where they throw it up and it's like, oh shit, it falls immediately.
Or the cannon.
Yeah, then he picks up the cannon and just shoots with it, right, yeah. That's the thing, is like, we could keep listing jokes, but it would basically just be like watching the movie again. That's the trouble, is like, there are so many bits that work here.
It's nonstop. That's one thing I will say about this movie. Like Airplane and at least the first Naked Gun, it's nonstop bit after bit after bit after bit after bit. There's barely any moment where they're not doing something.
Even just basic transitions, like when they're all like the establishing shot of the airplane that they're going to parachute out of is a U-Haul airplane for some reason.
The final airplane where it's got the bullseye and they're throwing darts at it.
Right. Even like the very last joke, we're just like, oh, I'm going to miss you and miss you too, Scarecrow. The end. Like the last millisecond of this movie is a fucking gag.
It's a fucking stupid bit. Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, Adam, before we keep listing every single joke in the movie, final thoughts on Top Secret.
I was not too high on it. I thought it was better than average, because the way I had seen it, like I said, chopped up and kind of lose the flow. But now that I've watched it from front to back, I think it's really, really good. It's not my favorite, but it would definitely, as far as spoof movies, probably be in my top 5, if not top 10. I think it's a super solid movie.
Yeah, I mean, I would say short of like, your Young Frankensteins or Blazing Saddles, I would say this deserves to be in that upper echelon in a way that like Airplane has been for a while and, deserves also a great fucking spoof movie. But at the same time, this is one that I feel is like so extremely underrated. It feels definitely like a movie that was not really sort of relevant at all at its time when it came out. but I do appreciate it's had a bit of a cult following, and there are people who are massive defenders of it, and I would count myself among them. I think this one is so consistent with the jokes, and there are so many funny bits that I'm just like, I laughed out loud like consistently throughout this movie. Even just in regular comedies, I rarely do that. Or like I'm literally lolling at what's going on here. Just the craft of every joke, the commitment of the filmmakers and the actors, and just the weird bizarreness of even the storyline, where it is just like we mentioned, this weird kind of like Great Escape homage to some degree, but it like mixes in all sorts of other like parodies and genre staples and just like really great jokes about filmmaking and the elements of that it is just, I think, one of the underrated, massive, great, not even just spoofies, just comedy movies in general. I think it deserves a lot more attention. But now, Adam, that we've finished discussing our two movies, let us get into the double redo. Double redo.
Double redo. Double redo. Double redo. Double redo. Double redo.
That works. So the double redo is a segment we do every week, in which Adam and I bring up a good and a bad movie related to the topic in question. So we recommend one that we'd say, hey, make sure to watch this one, and say about another one, don't bother with it. Stay far away. Very bad. So Adam, you're going first. What are your recommendations for the double redo for spoof movies?
I'll get through this quickly. I'll do my bad first. It's Scary Movie 5. It's not Anna Faris. It's Ashley Tisdale, who, Disney star or whatever, which is fine, great. But then it's got really lazy cameos with Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Mike Tyson, all that. And it literally becomes one of those movies that I referenced earlier that I hate. Just remember this from a scary movie, remember this from a horror movie, remember this. And it's a nonstop, and it's not funny. It feels lazy. It looks bad. If you're using the film Mama for basically your whole shtick to begin with, you got problems. Not to say Mama's a terrible movie. Mama is not a movie to fucking bridge a spoof off of. It's just, it doesn't work. It's the scary movies died, I would say, on part 3. There are some people who like part 4. I don't get it. But it just, really bad. And then for my good, I have what I think is one of my favorite spoof movies ever, and one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and especially because it was a blind watch for me. I didn't know what it was. I bought it at Blockbuster used for like $4, and my wife and I watched it, and we laughed so hard right off the bat. Is Black Dynamite with Michael Jai White. It's so fucking funny. The physical comedy, the lines, the way they purposely make it look like a shitty movie with the boom mic dropping in, the bad cuts, and the different actors and everything. It's one of the funniest and most quotable movies that have come out in so long. I think it's perfect. I think Black Dynamite is a perfect film. I can't sing its praises enough. I've shown it to everyone that I can, and everybody I've shown it to has loved it. So fucking funny. It's perfect.
Yeah, I've seen both of these. I actually watched Scary Movie 5 as part of when I rewatched all of the scary movies last year during pre-vaccine COVID, because I'm like with a bunch of friends online who were just like, I don't know, what do we do? How about we do this? And I would say 5 I had not seen until that particular watch. I'd seen the other 4. And I would say 5 is definitely incredibly bad. I would say 4 is maybe slightly worse. But 5 is still emblematic of like a lot of the problems, where it's not even just horror movies they're parodying. Like there's a whole extended like subplot about Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which is just like, it's not a horror movie. Why are we fucking parodying this in the middle of our horror movie spoof thing? And even like Ted shows up from like the fucking Teddy Bear Ted movies and shit like that. Like why are we doing this? This is dumb. And it's really sad also that it's directed by Malcolm D. Lee, who is not an unfunny comedy director. He also did Undercover Brother, and Girls Trip, and he's cousin of Spike Lee. He's not untalented as a comedy director in particular, but it's also written by David Zucker and Pat Proft. Like, they were the guys who took over the Scary Movie franchise after the Wayans brothers, and despite, I think 3 has a fair amount of funny bits in it, that's when they took over, 4 and 5 are still emblematic of, like, the worst of those spoof movies. And it's also weird where, like, Scary Movie 5 came out in 2013. Scary Movie 4 came out in 2006. Like, why? Who's asking for this? Who? Who the fuck was? It's such a dumb fucking thing that I'm so surprised exists. And then, yeah, Black Dynamite I love. Black Dynamite, if anything, like, the only problem I have with Black Dynamite is having seen the Rudy Ray Moore movies that they're parodying. It's like, oh, you took just certain bits for that. Who was the one character that is literally just the Rudy Ray Moore? Right, who just quotes the Rudy Ray Moore gags.
Yeah, it's Bullhorn. Yeah, 100%.
Despite that, there's still like so many funny, like even just once again great filmmaking bits, like where Michael J. White's delivering this like serious speech and like the boom mic comes down and like slaps him in the face and shit like that. A great commitment, like Jai White, who is like such a great action star. The fact that he like once again treats this so seriously makes it all the funnier when all these dumb jokes are where he fucking fights the ghost of Richard Nixon during the ending and shit like that. So funny. It makes that stuff work so wonderfully. And then for mine, I'll go ahead and I'll say my bad first and quickly as well, just because we kind of talked about most of the points about it. I have Wrongfully Accused, which was directed and written by Pat Proft. It's his only directorial effort, shockingly. And he's the guy who, like, he wrote with the Zuckers, particularly, like, the Naked Gun movies. He has a co-writing credit because he basically helped David Zucker string along all the jokes that they had done in this show previously. And this was his, like, only directorial effort, and it's very much a fugitive parody, which, it's not an unfair one to parody. And I think there are funny bits in this with like Leslie Nielsen playing the Harrison Ford character and Richard Crenna in his last movie role, sadly, following him around as the Tommy Lee Jones. There are a couple of funny gags. There's one all-timer gag, I will say, which is a visual bit where after the whole, like, they do the train escape thing from The Fugitive, and they have Leslie Nielsen like getting off the train and trying to run away, but the train is chasing him. And there's a bit where he hides behind a tree, and he looks behind him, and then the train actually leans over and sees Leslie Nielsen. That's a hilarious fucking visual gag. It's the best gag in the movie. But one gag in the middle of, like, an 85-minute movie even is not enough to save it, unfortunately. Not the worst of those, like a Spy Hard or some of the other, like, later Leslie Nielsen movies. There are worse ones. But it's not a prime example either. Just really watch that one train clip on YouTube. It's pretty funny. That's about what I would recommend with that one. And then my good is, I would say, you kind of referenced this at the beginning of the show about, like, oh, what's the last big theatrical spoof movie you can think of that wasn't one of the Friedberg-Seltzer movies? And for me, it would be one that I'm glad has gotten a lot of cult appreciation. It's Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story, which is a parody of biopics starring John C. Reilly. And it was produced by Judd Apatow, and I think of the various Apatow movies that were very popular around this time in 2007 when this came out, this is the one that holds up the best for me, I think, because it is as zany and silly as so many of the Zucker movies. And I think it's another one where there is a joke pretty much every fucking second, and most of them hit beautifully. Mainly because Reilly, who has done comedies, like even, this is around the time he's in Talladega Nights and Step Brothers, this performance is so much more committed in the way that, like, you can tell he's pulling on his dramatic chops to parody, like, a lot of these, like, musician biopic movies, and just really committing to stuff like the bit where he's talking to Kristen Wiig about, like, oh, I'm leaving, and I'm taking the children and the monkey. Whoa, you can take my children, but don't you dare take my monkey. Like, bullshit like that. He's so committed to the bit beautifully, and the way that, like, everyone else's that pops up in this, like, Jenna Fisher's also here, and she's wonderful as his second wife. Kristen Wiig, as I mentioned, is his first wife, and is very funny. Tim Meadows, obviously, with the whole, like, you don't want no part of this shit bit, is tremendous. So many great people pop up in it, and I think it's genuinely one of the great spoof movies from Jake Kasdan, son of Lawrence Kasdan, who now has been successful with the Jumanji movies. Happy for his success, but this is his masterpiece. I think it's, like I mentioned before, with, like, Top Secret being an underappreciated, like, part of the upper echelon of just, like, spoofs and comedy movies in general. I would argue Walk Hard also deserves a seat at that table.
Well, I've seen both these. Wrongfully Accused, I completely agree. I love that train bit. It's fucking classic. It's so stupid. It's so stupid, and it looks dumb. Like, it looks dumb, but it works, because it's great. Leslie Nielsen always had one of the best, like, oh, surprise faces of all time. And that's a great bit. Walk Hard. Yeah, I do like Walk Hard. I'm not as positive on it as you are. I think there's some bits in it for me that just don't work. But you also did say that not every bit works. But I would agree that, most do. Riley is fucking gold in that movie. One of my favorite line deliveries ever is John C. Reilly and Walk Hard going, "I'll punch you with a mouth." Like, it's so fucking funny. But yeah, I really like Walk Hard. Walk Hard was one of those where when I first saw it, I wasn't sure how I felt, but then it's one of those on repeated rewatches. You get more jokes, you catch more jokes, you catch more, you catch more, and it just gets funnier every time. So yeah, I think Walk Hard is a very criminally underrated movie.
Also, just a big thing, the songs are all great. Regardless of the funniness or not, they're just genuinely really good songs.
They're really good songs. Absolutely.
Helps with the bit, for sure, that you commit that much to it. But let's go ahead and repeat our titles to everybody out there. Adam.
For my bad, I switched up. For my bad, I had Scary Movie 5, and for my good, I had Black Dynamite.
And for my bad, I had Wrongfully Accused, and for my good, I had Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Also twisted it up. Oh man, we're just really changing everything. We're completely screwing over the formula. This is our spoof of podcasts in general.
Spoofing our show, spoof. Hey, we're funny. Hey, give us money. Everyone,
like and
give us
subscribe.
fucking money.
Subscribe to my Patreon.
Yeah, you do. Have you heard about Raid Shadow Legends?
For the record, there should be a spoof podcast that is 100%
There
on this.
kinda
It's a
needs to
gold
be.
mine.
We could do that. Actually, anybody who's listening to this, don't fucking steal this idea. We'll sue you.
A copyright TM, don't steal. But yeah, let's go ahead and start getting into the end of the show here, where we'll be doing our picking at the very end for our next episode, so stay tuned for that. But we also want to thank some people before we get out of here, like Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used for our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Christian Thor Lally for our artwork. Follow him at Night of Water, that's Night with a K, _of_water, on various socials for all his stuff. We also want to thank, of course, our Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/DEDBpod, where for just $1 a month you become an edgelord patron and get access to, polls where you get to pick certain movies we cover, like Top Secret. You all pick that. Thank you, patrons. And you also get to listen to bonus podcast stuff, like we recently would have put out a couple of On the Edge of Relevances, where we talk about recent movies that hit either theaters or streaming, which we did two about Nope and Barbarian.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yep, and you can listen to those for just $1.
Or $10 or $30 or $100 or a fucking billion if you want. Come on, Bezos.
Come on, Musk, you're already destroying Twitter. Just send over some of that money to us. And no, we will not pay $8 to be verified, asshole.
No, not at all.
No, for sure. Which, by the way, we should mention, find us on Twitter.
While it's still around.
That's true. I will say, yeah, while it still exists, we'll be on Twitter until it eventually gets burned up in a Musk meme or some bullshit that he does. We'll be on Twitter at DEDBpod and also on Facebook. And also you can submit feedback to us either there or at our email, doubleedgedoublebill@gmail.com, all spelled out. And for more of me, you can find me on various socials like Letterboxd or Twitter, like I said, while it still exists, at Not the Who's Tommy. And also do some writing at marianithomas.wordpress.com and at film-cred.com.
And you can find me on Instagram at Atom or Adam. That's ATOM_OR_ADAM. You can find me on Letterboxd at Schwanson. That's SCHWANDTSON. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, you got out of Twitter while it was a good idea too.
Oh, I got out a while ago. Almost fucking 8 months now. 9 mons.
Yeah, but at that time, it's just like, oh, Adam, nothing bad's gonna happen on Twitter. Everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah, fuck Twitter.
I mean, its current state, especially, like, fuck that shit. For sure.
Kind of fuck it forever.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I'll be on there until the ship officially sinks, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll be there watching as, like, as the band plays on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're going down. You're that old-ass captain of Titanic.
Yeah, the captain goes down with the ship, even though the actual captain will probably like, see you later. I'm getting on my Tesla boat. That doesn't work. It'll blow up.
If this boat was electrical, it wouldn't have sank.
Well, for more of us, for our actual audio content, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other podcasting platforms. If you're listening on Talk Film Society, why listen to all the other great shows here on Talk Film Society? And you can also dig into our archives and our Podbean main feed for like almost 200 episodes before we joined TFS. And Yep. Yeah, there's a lot. But if nothing else, if you can't, help us out with the Patreon, that's cool. Money can be tight. The free way to help us out, though, is to rate, review, or share the show around, because it gets us more visibility.
Even if you don't want to do that, just tell somebody at your fucking country club meetup or whatever you guys are doing. I don't know, your bridge games. Tell them there. Your sewing circles.
I'm listening to the finest podcast featuring two commoners. It's so funny hearing them talk about these things. Elon, you should listen to the latest episode.
Hey, Bertha! Hey, Midge! You heard this? Oh, that's my demographic I'm going for. Senile old people.
A long-lasting one that'll be around for minutes to be
able
to help.
Right, as I said.
But now, Adam, it's time we did our picking for next week, which we do at the end of every episode, in which Adam and I have two picks that are, either one of us has two good picks, one of us has two bad. We switch up on the quality for that. And we assign each of those a number between 1 and 10. And, we assign them numbers, and thus the other person usually picks, like, I'm going to pick number 6. And the person who has the picks, like, okay, that's closest to number 8, which has this particular movie at there. But keep in mind, there is a certain rule we have called the Godfather rule, where we were given vetoes previously last May during our anniversary show, that we only had one opportunity to use a veto, or if we hear one of those choices, we're like, actually, I don't want to cover that one, so I'm going to say, actually, I'll take the cannoli, and thus, we get the other pick. And I did that last week, so my veto is gone. Because I ended up using it on 50 Shades of Black, and we ended up covering Stan Helsing, which,
Yeah, well, but last year, I used it on Cinderella, and we got that fucking movie we got, so...
Yeah, Me, You, Madness, of course, yes.
Yeah, so still no wins.
But at least, that was a better movie to discuss, I would say, Me, You, Madness.
That's the most insane thing I've ever seen.
It's pretty insane, yeah. And Stan Helsing at least had us the opportunity to talk about Leslie Nielsen. So we'll have that, as opposed to Marlon Wayne's doing a 50 Shades of Grey parody.
So there you go, enjoy it. Stop bitching about it, man.
I'm just really saying to myself, like, no, I didn't waste it. It's fine. It's fine. I didn't waste it.
It's fine. But, holding your knees, shaking in a room.
No! Well, Adam, you still have an opportunity to not waste yours. And we'll see if you might potentially do for my two bad picks for this. And you have the two good picks for our next topic, which, in honor of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, is coming out. But we're not doing a Marvel one. We are doing a return, once again as part of Revember. We're visiting these topics, to Troubled Productions. Which, if you're at all aware of the production history of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, that went through a lot of shit. Yeah, a lot of trouble.
Which previously we had 50 Shades of Grey, whoop, and then we had The Evil Within, which was,
yeah, very fascinating, yes. But I'm very curious, Adam, for your two good picks, which I can't veto at all, whatever this choice is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and pick number 8.
50 Shades Darker.
Oh, no!
Okay, so at number 10, I have a movie that I know you love, I know most people love, but has a very interesting production history. I have the original Back to the Future.
Oh, wow, that obscure little movie that no one's ever heard of?
Yeah, nobody's ever heard of it.
No, yeah, I'm so surprised you picked a very obscure choice. Fuck yeah, sure. There's a very long production history behind the movie that we'll definitely detail as we talk about it next week, and I'm very happy. Hot take, I think Back to the Future is a great movie.
Oh, it's pretty great.
Not a lot of people agree, but
pretty great.
I'm a rebel and a renegade saying things like this.
Do you like Jurassic Park 2? High five.
Not Jurassic Park 2. Jurassic
Park,
yes.
I meant T-O-O. At number 1, I had one of my favorite sci-fi movies ever, which also has an incredibly insane sort of production, is Blade Runner.
That's true. It does have a very interesting production history.
It was gonna be Dustin Hoffman.
That's true. Yes, there's a lot of interesting things with that. But I'm glad we're covering the better movie, I would say.
Oh, fuck you.
Hot take, I prefer one of your favorite movies over your other favorite movies.
Back to the Future is not one of my favorite movies. I like the movie. You're a dick. I quit. Again.
Well, now, Adam, let's see if you'll quit about this one. For my two bad choices, Please pick numbers from 1 and 10.
Okay, well, I'll go number 2.
Okay. Number 1, I have for an actor with a lot of sort of awful movies around this turn of the millennium era. I have Eddie Murphy in The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Now, Adam, you have that veto. You could use it if you want to.
Nope. Not using it. Nope.
Okay. Well,
oh, fuck. I probably should have. Too late. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, let's. You can argue that as I mentioned, my other choice, number 9, was sadly another one that features Val Kilmer, but in less great shape, to say the least. I have the Tomas Alfredson disaster, The Snowman.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm good with Pluto Nash. There's nothing to say about The Snowman.
I mean, I would argue there's a lot in terms of it's not a complete movie. It is not complete at all. It's just like this was released in theaters with just like, if you were to grade that movie, it's like a see me after class redo assignment.
You came out guns blazing on this one, you motherfucker.
I did.
All right, wait till the next bad picks. I got your ass. Actually, it doesn't matter. You're fucked. You have no veto.
Right. That's right. I don't have a veto. That's right. Yeah, you could have used yours, but you didn't.
I didn't, and I think I actually fared better. You are in trouble.
That's fine. You also have to watch the movie. That's cool.
I'll make Heather watch it and report to me. Baby, I never asked you to do anything for me. Will you watch The Adventures of Pluto Nash and tell me about it?
And also every other bad pick we have from now on.
I love you. I want to make you feel beautiful.
Well, on that note, everybody, I'll just end this with one of the best jokes in Top Secret that's in the credits. This space is for rent.
And I will end this with, I didn't watch the credits.
It's pretty good. There's a lot of fun gags in the credits.
Yeah, I don't care.